Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. Merry Christmas. The last 2 days I spent moving into my new home. I'm in a different location now. So let's get caught up on the top stories affecting Ukraine. This happened 2 days ago, but it's very important. Ukraine says it shot down 3 Russian Su-34 aircraft. The fixed-wing losses, if true, would be the worst in a single day for Russia in some time, and point to changing air defense tactics. We know this story is true because Russian military bloggers have confirmed it, and each one of these Su-34 aircraft is worth over 36 million US dollars, meaning Russian aviation, in a single day, lost over $100 million worth of aircraft. And worse than losing a plane is losing a pilot. That is much more valuable to Russia right now. Each Su-34 has a 2-person crew. All 3 planes were basically hit at the same time, and it's being reported that 2 of the crews were lost, but two pilots successfully ejected and were retrieved. Russia can always build more aircraft, but a capable and experienced pilot takes a lot of money and years to develop. This was a huge blow to Russia's Air Force. So how did Ukraine do it? And they got their 3rd Patriot air defense system earlier this month. And I'm guessing they wanted to surprise the Russians. So the report is these Su-34s were taking off from Crimea, and they were launching glide bombs. And in order to launch these, they have to climb elevation and release them about 50 kilometers out from their targets. So Ukraine had a short-range radar set up, and the main Patriot battery turned off. And they waited for the planes to get within 50 kilometers of the front. The short-term radar knew that they were in the kill zone, and then they flipped on the radar for the Patriot system, and the Patriot has a range of about 150 kilometers. So the jets were trapped. By the time they figured they had a target lock on them, there was nothing they could do. The missiles were fired and they took out all 3 aircraft. These planes couldn't get out of the range fast enough. Pretty brilliant. And Russia has been relying on aviation in the Kherson region to destroy Ukraine's attempts at building bridgeheads. Ukraine has the high ground on the north bank of the river, so it's been difficult for Russia to use drones and artillery. They've been relying on aviation to repel Ukraine's attacks in the Kherson region. But as of today, all those attacks have stopped. Because there's a Patriot within 150 kilometers of this area, Russian pilots no longer feel safe and secure flying within range of missiles or glide bombs. This is a huge boost for Ukraine's efforts to get to the other side of the river. And I want to remind everyone, check out this headline. Putin vows to knock down US Patriot missiles supplied to Ukraine. The Russian president dismissed the weapon as outdated and implied Kyiv will have to cede territory for peace. This article is from December 22nd of last year. This is when Ukraine got their first Patriot air defense system, protecting the capital city of Kyiv. Russia tried to destroy it, launching a bunch of their hypersonic Kinzhal missiles. And the Patriot shot down the hypersonic missiles. So when this happened, Russia basically stopped talking about the Patriot launchers. They claimed they were all destroyed when, of course, they aren't. And the Patriot is so good, it can shoot down anything the Russians have. So Ukraine now has 3 known operational Patriot systems. Of course, one is protecting the Kyiv region. The other is believed to be in the western part, protecting Lviv and the industrial defense production centers. Ukraine's Air Force takes off somewhere around here, so they have the 2 Patriots more or less overlapping to protect their Air Force. So the 3rd has gone online, and it makes sense to put it close to Mykolaiv. It can protect Odessa, it can protect Kherson and Mykolaiv, and Russia can no longer fly their aviation from Crimea to this region. So a fourth Patriot should be on the way pretty soon. More than likely, it's going to go up in Zaporizhia or the Donbass region or Kharkiv. Russia has no response to these launchers. So Putin is quietly signaling openness to Ukraine ceasefire talks. This is a report from the New York Times. They have confidential sources. Since at least September, Putin has been signaling that he is open to a ceasefire that freezes the fighting along the current lines. It cited two former senior Russian officials close to the Kremlin and US and international officials who have received the message from Moscow's envoys. Despite his bravado in public, the Kremlin has indicated its interest in striking a deal to halt the war, so long as it could still declare victory. We knew this already, because everybody loyal to Russia living in the West has been crying and screaming about wanting a ceasefire for 6 months. Of course this is what the Kremlin wants. Of course this is what Putin has been telling his toads in the West to push. Here's the problem. When Putin hints through his intermediaries that he's ready to freeze the war along the current front line, that means he is ready to accept recognition of his conquests from Zelensky in the West. He is not compromising or ready to negotiate. He is just seeking a surrender. Russia would never be willing to acknowledge anything or give anything up. All they're willing to do is accept recognition and accept territory. They want legitimacy from President Zelensky and the West to be allowed to keep all the territory they've currently stolen. And when Russia says they want a ceasefire, it's always temporary. This is what they did to the Chechens in the 90s. They're getting their asses kicked, and they just say they want peace. They want a ceasefire. They then use that time, years if needed, to build up their military forces in order to go back for more. Nobody's going to fall for it this time. Here's a Russian, Garry Kasparov, and his opinion. Putin can have a ceasefire in 10 minutes anytime he wants. All he has to do is get the hell out of Ukraine. Until he does that, any ceasefire is BS to give Russian forces time to resupply and consolidate inside Ukraine. It also gives his Western appeasers ammunition that Putin is this peace-loving guy that just wants to negotiate. Why is Ukraine and the West being so unreasonable? And this is what has the Russians really freaked out. The United States is starting to target banks that are helping Russia's war in Ukraine. President Biden and the Department of Justice is getting very aggressive, going after Russian money, and any corporations around the world still doing business with the Russians. Here's a tweet from an official Russian account. The West scampers to find some legal avenues to confiscate Russian assets, or confiscate the profits derived from these assets and send them to Ukraine. If they do so, we would retaliate by confiscating their assets in Russia. Russia's already been doing this. For 2 years, Russia has been seizing the assets of Western companies inside of Russia. Russia is currently flying a fleet of stolen aircraft worth tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars. So it's hypocritical for Russia to condemn the West, to possibly do stuff that they've been doing nonstop for 2 years. The Kremlin on Friday also threatened serious consequences for Europe and the US if Russian assets held abroad are given to aid the Ukrainian budget and war efforts. These might include tit-for-tat financial seizures or even a break in diplomatic relations. What Russia is really scared about is their $300 billion frozen in Russian banks being used and given to the Ukrainians to fight this war. And this is a complicated topic. Let me share the thoughts from Ambassador McFowle. Why are people proposing compromises to Putin about Russia's frozen assets? What has he done to deserve such accommodation? Transfer the $300 billion now. Send a signal to all tyrants around the world that you can't invade and annex countries, commit crimes against humanity, and still do your banking in the free world. To recap, Russia knew that they were going to get hit with sanctions for invading Ukraine. This war was only supposed to last 3 days. So Putin spent the last decade saving up $600 billion, not to fight this war, but to survive sanctions. He wanted to make sure that the pension system in Russia was solvent for the next 10 to 20 years, as long as he would be alive and in power. But Russia is using their money to fight this war. That wasn't what that money was for, and Putin never told his financial advisors he was actually going to invade Ukraine. So half this money was being held in Western banks. You might ask, why would Russia do this? Well, when you have this sum of money, you want to diversify it, because a single bank could have a catastrophe and fail. You spread your money around. You also get the VIP treatment when you keep tens of billions of dollars in JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley or Bank of America. So the Russians didn't think this would happen. What I think the plan was is this $300 billion that was frozen in Western banks. The West was always planning on this being used for reconstruction. Once Russia gave up on this war or was defeated, there would have been a legal process with Russia's involvement. They need representation in court. But the new government of Russia was going to have to give up some, if not all, of this money for Ukraine's reconstruction after the war. Given this war is lasting longer than most people assumed, and Republicans in Congress are blocking additional military aid, yeah, let's use the money now for the war. This $300 billion frozen in Western banks, just do it. Take them to court. Doesn't matter if Russia has representation. The banks aren't going to like this, but just do it. Take the money, give it to Ukraine. Ukraine can then buy whatever they want from NATO stockpiles. A win-win-win for everyone, aside from Russia. This is a disturbing headline. Russia plans to mobilize Ukrainian children in the occupied territories. Leaked conscript files and registration showed Russia plans to mobilize Ukrainian children born in the year 2007 for its invasion. This is according to the advisor to the mayor of Mariupol. Recruiting children to fight against their own state would constitute a war crime, but Putin doesn't care. If the mobilization takes place in 2024, that would place the children born in 2007 at the age of 17, which is legally defined as children according to the Geneva Convention. If you're the Russians and you're conscripting 17-year-olds in the occupied territories, it's because all the 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and 50-year-olds are already gone. Forced conscription, how Russia wiped out the male population of the Donbas region. This is a genocide. These are the ethnic Russian speakers of the Donbas region, but Putin is wiping them out, at least the men, unless they're already in essential services like police or firefighters. Russia is conscripting all of them and using them brutally on the front lines. These are Ukrainians killing Ukrainians. Russia views this as a win-win to protect their own people. Eventually, in the future, proper Russian men from the homeland will be brought into this territory to Russify it and make sure all the people are loyal to the Tsar. This is what the Russian Empire has been doing for centuries, killing the ethnic minorities to repopulate the territory. It's just sick. So let's check in on the average Russian soldier. We've got another video from Dmitry at War Translated. I'll play the first couple seconds. You can get a feel of where these guys are, and then I'll read the subtitles. It's cold, it's dark, they're at some kind of training ground, and this Russian man has some complaints. Check this out. We've been here since the 26th. Our officers lied to our faces that we are territorial defense. The lieutenant colonel just came out and said that we're just a motor rifle unit, but we're stormtroopers. We're stormtroopers, not territorial defense. They just told us. They lied to us. We haven't held a gun for 2 weeks. Today we came to the shooting range to throw grenades, but they didn't have any grenades. They didn't even provide us a bus. We walked here from the shooting range. 10 kilometers we walked from there to here. How the F are we meant to fight under these officers? They'll sell us out in Ukraine. I don't know what to say. Every video, guys, I just question how can these Russian men tolerate this level of deception and corruption and abuse, but they do. We have a Russian presidential election update. Pro-peace Putin challenger blocked from the ballot. Independent Russian presidential candidate Yekaterina Dunsova will not be permitted to appear on the ballot in March 2024 after the Central Election Commission rejected her nomination documents. I shared her announcement video on the channel last week. She says amazing things. This is a very brave and inspiring thing this woman has done. But the Kremlin said no. They cited some BS how 100 of her signatures were not real, so she was disqualified from the ballot. What are you going to do? If she actually cared about the war and what was happening, her and her family would just leave Russia. That's all you can do at this point. And when it comes to Putin's election, he's not messing around. This is a tweet from Russian state media agency TASS. A remote electronic voting system will for the first time be used in Russia's presidential election. Putin wants to cut down on time-consuming ballot stuffing, as it's far easier for him to employ just one person to tap a few million extra Putin votes into the electronic voting system. So in the past, Putin had to find paper ballots to stuff and win his elections, but now it's all digital. If you're voting in Russia, go ahead and touch the screen. Doesn't matter where you touch. Putin's going to get 95% of the vote. And where the heck is Russia's imprisoned opposition leader, Alexei Navalny? He still has not been seen or heard from in 19 days. Not a good sign for him. More than likely, Putin got rid of him and doesn't want to admit it until after Christmas or New Year's or something. So let's talk about the real Russia. Russian officials and pro-war activists denounce star-studded naked party. Footage from the party at Mudabor, a popular Moscow nightclub, on Wednesday showed scantily clad pop stars, as well as TV hosts and even a presidential candidate partying in the club. Pictures and videos online and social media. I'll link these down below if you want to check them out, but this is what life is like in the capital city. They're not concerned with what's going on with the war. They're wealthy, they're influential, they feel like they're safe. And I have no criticism if people want to live this way or party and enjoy themselves. But it's the hypocrisy of Russia, their official state narrative being they're the defender of conservatism and moral values, when it's all a lie. All of these people are disgusting monsters, and we need to just collapse Russia and reboot the whole country. They need to start over. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Netherlands to deliver 18 F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine pretty darn soon. We don't know the official delivery date, but it probably will be in the next week or two. And then once the pilots start coming back from their pilot training, they'll be ready to go. And this is the big deal about F-16s. All of the different kinds of missiles and weapon systems that can be attached to it. These are missiles currently in NATO inventories that can be donated to Ukraine. They've not been donated so far because Ukraine didn't have the jet. Now that they do, this is going to unlock a huge pool of munitions that can be used on the Russians. This is coming for Russia in 2024. What else? The Czech Republic to provide $10 million in aid for medical facilities in Kharkiv. Thank you so much, Czechia. Finland announces military aid package for Ukraine worth $116 million. Thank you so much, Finland. Germany announced another amazing military package. Lots of good stuff in here. Germany's been fantastic the last couple months. Final couple feel-good clips I have for you. The first one is a little helper doing what he can.
Давай, тяни. Давай, молодец, Иван, пошел я. Вот так. Давай, Арсик, клади, все, клади там, клади. Все, молодец.
This dog is more useful and effective than 10 Russian conscripts. Final clip I have for you is a Ukrainian defender showing off his new smartphone holder.
Коля, що це в тебе?
Це новий діжатель я купив собі.
Це телефоном?
Да, де я газую іногда. Тут по жорсткому. І ще й вітровон, коротше.
О, нічого, вентилятор даже встроєний.
Ну так, тільки треба дуже розсеяти. Я завести його.
Завести, да, не заведи.
Це не виходить. Розряд треба робити. Ух ти, блін, розрядається. Телефон мой пропустить.
That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.